Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another folding session. We're here. It is Saturday, December 19th, 2020, 10:09 a.m. We're here with Sharmina and very excited to have her back. And today we're going to fold a 6-fold pattern and we're going to see how this, well, actually the solution for this is already on the Patreon, but what we're going to do is fold it inside of a tiled hexagon or an overlapped hexagon. So putting several hexagons overlapped through folding and then applying the fold or the solution to a single hexagon and then spreading everything else. And then we're going to see how to make a 3D into a little corrugation. Perhaps it could be the start of something new. And we'll also see a tentative hypothetical way of even having a more spread out pattern, not just having like this segment, but having more pattern in the piece of paper here. So we're going to start with a regular hexagon. So let me just get into position here as there's a new camera setup. Sorry about that. As you can see though, the light is not flickering anymore. So moving up, the resolution seems to be a little lower, but at least it's consistent. So we start by folding a piece of paper in half. We open this up, turn it over. On here, we take a vertex and we put it on the line, or if you want the hexagon, well, this is how I like to do the hexagon, but if you're more inclined of getting the 2 there right away, you can fold a quarter and just fold along this part, not really everything. Just have a little crease there. And then take this value and put that on the crease. So we take this, match it to the crease, and then we're gonna shadow it or ghost it, which means that we're gonna take this value and put it on the other side. But we're gonna save one step by folding this paper in half. And there you can even see sort of where the reference is. So we can turn the paper over. You can even see the shadow there a little bit. And what we're going to do is copy that same fold on the other side. We can open this up. Now we have these two. Now we're going to take, we can take either one of them, but we're going to take one of these folds and we're going to put it on the edge. So I can either take this one or I can take this one and put it on this edge. So I'm going to do it for this one on the bottom, but I'm also going to do it on the side where this is not seen. That means I'm going to turn it over. The reason being that if I fold it on this side, perhaps this fold will provoke or will produce a little, defection from the necessary lines. Well, that is to say that the height of the paper will make inaccuracies. And we have that. And now we're going to fold and ghost these two. So we're going to turn it over. You can even see there on the shadow of it. So we're going to fold. Yeah, just make sure that your ghosting is as accurate as you can make it. That is, that if you turn it over, if you look at it from where you're folding, you should see that it's as congruent as you can make it. And then do the other one. The advantage of this one is that the fold itself will land on the line we just folded, so have that advantage on our side. And then if we unfold, we get a nice hexagon. So it's rather optional, but I think it's recommended right now that we cut the hexagon from the rectangle, not leave it inside. So cut this line, that, and that. Alternatively, you can leave those in and fold everything with those sort of hanging around, but for right now, let's try and avoid that. So what I like to do for cutting is the nail, just driving it on both sides, having the fold be both mountain and valley, helps to weaken the paper bond. Now, regarding Islamic patterns, I am alone in some respects of when it comes to the analysis. And one of the things, which is probably something that other people also do, but I call certain patterns that are prevalent in several countries and several times, I call them canonical. There are some patterns which are emblematic to a specific place or to a specific time, and then there are some that are just abundant all over the place. So I like to call those canonical. And this one is one of those cases. This one is seen in Turkey. This one is seen in India. I think I've seen it also like in Iran. And when I say that I'm seeing them, I mean pictures, because I haven't been to India and I haven't been to Iran or Turkey for that matter. But the pictures are to be trusted. So I have here a hexagon. How are you doing, Shermin? You got yours?
Yep.
Awesome. So we're gonna need the radial line. So we're gonna inscribe another valley here for the vertices. I'll give us this. All the lines should be mountain, and now we're gonna put a valley between them. So it's gonna be a bisection. So what I like to do for bisections, especially in the radial case, is the double mountain technique. I take two radii, which are mountains, and then I begin to squeeze them together like so. I put my finger between, sort of to do a little sink on it, a little depression there, and then connect these two mountains. So this mountain connecting with this mountain, 1, 2. And with those folded, we can actually see a little square pyramid there. Very basic stuff. It's still nice to see. And then we take this and fold it like so. So I've been doing some analysis regarding the minimal triangle. That's something like a concept that comes up quite a lot in Islamic patterns, and even you could make a case for that coming up a lot in origami design as well. And one of the things I've been thinking about is how to catalog the angles. We're going to look into that a little bit later, but for now, let's focus on this. So we have a radially divided hexagon with alternating mountains and valleys. Valleys for the apothems, mountains for the radii. If we turn it over, these get inverted. The mountain then becomes the apothem, the valley, the radii. That's good. That's very basic stuff. So the solution for this pattern in particular is a 12-4 inside of the hexagon. Now this is easily achievable through simply taking an edge of the hexagon and folding it onto the apothem. So in this case, I have my apothems here as mountains. So if I fold that onto it, I'll get the motif. Now that will just make a single lonely motif. And as much as fun as that is, we want to have a little more excitement. So we have a choice to make. We could tile just one layer like this one, where we take just the midpoint of the edge and just match it to the center. Or we could get a little more exciting and have a bigger expanse so we're going to try folding first this one. And then we're going to refold the hexagon and try and do it with thirds, sort of a more expansive tiling. So this is one way that we could do this. Another way that we could do this would be to fold the vertex to the center. But as you can see, we will have less area overlapped. And what that means is that we will also have less expansion. So in order to have, a proper, more satisfactory spread, we're gonna do it like this. Midpoint to the center, and we get a nice hexagram on the midpoints. Now the idea for this to work, we need all of these folds to be active simultaneously. And we can do this simply by folding, and with the overlap we fold, but this will create some height, and that's not a bad thing, but perhaps it'll be a little more elegant. You could say that perhaps. If we, instead of leaving this underneath like that, we actually try to get it out of the way. So here what I'm doing is, so I have this folded, and then I can sort of trace the line that's going to match to the rest of the, to the triangle of the hexagon. And I can pull this out so that when I fold the next one in the sequence, I have this flat rather. So the space that would be placed underneath this layer would be released, which is, argumentably better. It's a weird word, argumentably. No, it's not that weird. So as we move along, we're going to find that the hardest one is going to be the last one. So for the last one, we're just going to have to do this for both sides, left and right. See that these two spread, come down. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you're right here?
Yes.
Awesome. So now we're going to apply the solution to this overlap hexagon. So we have all this layer underneath, so now we're going to apply the solution to this hexagon. The solution is take an edge and put it on the apothem line. So I'm just going to trace the two apothem lines for this guy. So for this edge, I'm just going to trace those two apothem lines. It's going to be one of them, and this is going to be the other one. Now, it makes sense to think that it's only going to be, wait a minute, you can barely see. it makes sense to think that there's only going to be two apothem lines you can land on, as this edge has an apothem in and of itself. So we take one, we put it on that apothem line, and we fold. We're going to fold also the excess. So whatever you have left over, also fold that. You have the option to fold that in a valley, or you have the option to fold that in a mountain, whatever makes you feel comfortable. Personally, I don't mind folding it in a valley, but it might be more accurate to fold it in a mountain that is toward the back, because it's not going to be all this layering, sort of separating the paper. So that's one, that's two, a little extra there. And so that solves for this edge. Oh no, it doesn't. I think I went to the next one accidentally. My bad. Now this edge is solved. So that's one, and that's two. Now we got to do this for all of them.
6 times.
It'll be a total of 12 times. It'll be a total of 12 folds, as each edge can have two. Has two apothems it falls on. So each edge has 2 folds that it does. So 6 times 2, 12. So this is an ideal case, because we don't have as much, it's not that thick. We don't have that many layers to overlap when we're doing this fold. So that means that, it's ideal. It works even though it's sort of using all this simultaneous folding. And so when we try and do it on the thirds, because they're going to be thicker, this won't be as simple. So we're going to have to do a little workaround for that. But we're going to see how it will be like a translation, sort of taking something that means the same thing, but just saying it differently. Also, fun thing to recognize is how these folds are matching, are connecting on the edge of the hexagon. You can see that these two, for instance, they have a mutual point of contact. And so what we're inscribing is a 12-4 inside of the hexagon. And so there I am. So I have all the lines I needed. So that means that on the other side, it's going to be all the lines I need too. So all this information has now been printed, as I like to say, on the other side. Good so far?
Just a couple more.
All right. Okay, next thing we're going to do is, it's going to help us sort of see where this is going. I'm going to use a Sharpie pen. I recommend you use something a little lighter. But I do want you to notice, before I do this, that the pattern is inside of this kite. So the pattern is inside of the apothem. So inside of this kite that we have here, between the apothems, we're going to find a cross, a four-fold cross. So it goes like this and goes like that. And that's all the information we're going to inscribe into the pattern. So it's that on all of them. So this is the motif. I'm going to open it up completely. And now we're going to try and find the rest of these crosses. Now, there is a situation that we don't have the radial lines inscribed on all of them. So it is something actually that I learned from the last one. So I'm going to go back here a little bit. And so with this folded, I want you to notice that there are on the back side, the radial lines which we inscribed in the beginning are not here. So I'm going to go ahead and just inscribe these. So just these radial divisions.
Can you just repeat that? I was still drawing my lines.
Oh yes, so on this folded motif,
Yeah.
we're going to simply inscribe. So we're going to turn it over and we're going to notice that these, you should see on yours that this is bare. It doesn't have any folds in between. So simply what we're doing is connecting the vertice to vertice like this. And that'll just give us a fold right between them. So there's 3 folds, 1, 2, and 3. It should feel pretty light because it's a fold that we already have on the other side. So that's going to help us to just know when to stop drawing the pattern. So now we can open it up. And, it might be cool actually to use another color. Well, I'm going to use another color for these. Just because, right? But also, this is the creative part where you can put your own little thing to it. So we're going to look for the kites once more. So you should be able to spot them pretty quick now. So inside of each of these, we're going to get another cross like these. As you can see, just the end of it just has a little bit there. And so that pretty much solves the pattern. So we have here an expansion that's, it's not that extensive. We only have a full hexagon, and then we have these half hexagons surrounding it. So we do get to appreciate sort of where it's going to go. We can see how the rings of the decagons are happening. We can appreciate then how this internal information is part of another ring. So it's a nice balance it has. Now I'm going to teach you how to make it, how to fold this into something that's 3D, quote unquote. So thing to take into account when making a pattern 3D is that all the lines of the pattern, and this applies to all the patterns that I folded, Islamic patterns that I folded, all the lines of the pattern will be valleys. And now our challenge is to try and find the necessary mountains and valleys in order to make this thing into a corrugation. But all the lines of the patterns will be the same state. So here's an example of how to like force this, quote unquote, into what you need. So, well, before that, we're going to need to inscribe a few more folds. The fold we're going to need to put into place is going to be a mountain that goes from the corner of this hexagon to this other corner over here. So just a fold that goes from this corner to that corner. It's going to go through the center of the shape like that. So this is the fold we need. We need this fold in a mountain. So we have this pattern right here. You can simply take that point and fold it onto this point. So this, and we fold. Just this little bit too. And we should see the fold go through the center. So it's one, it's two. Now, as we move along, I'm sort of, stepping ahead here a little bit. But the idea is to have this. So you can see there how the pattern line is valley. We still need to finish this off though. So it won't be as satisfying to fold until we have all the necessary information into place. So the only folds we're missing are these crosses. These crosses. So we need to go ahead and inscribe into each of these pieces a cross. Now, actually, now that I'm looking at it, we could inscribe the folds to all of them at the same time if we sort of had the overlap. But the thing about doing it this way is that you will need to exchange what a fold is. So that means that if I fold it with the overlap here, I fold this line, say, and then I unfolded it. When I unfold it, it's going to be a valley on the other side. So I will be forced to, even though the fold is solved, I would still need to refold it in the correct state. So, it's a way to get a solution, but it still doesn't save up on any work. So it might be best to just actually fold it. And it's a nice exercise to try and match points so you can see 2 points. Just fold a line that matches them. Now that I'm done with the center shapes, now I'm going to go to the rim shapes. So the ones that are out. So here, the reason why I'm sort of refolding and sort of readapting the fold is because I want the fold to go through the center there. So there is a very clear point where I need to go through. So I just make my way to make sure that it goes through that point I need. So it's 6 of these shapes in the center, and then it's 6 of these shapes in the outer. So a total of 12 pieces we're doing right now. And because each piece has 2 folds, so that's 12 times 2, that's 24 folds that we're inscribing right now. So, okay, so I'm done with those crosses. And what's fun is that it even does sort of another version of the pattern in and of itself. So I'm going to turn it over and just so you can see what I mean. I'm going to put the information of that sequence on this side. You're going to see how it's just, for instance, we have this cross. So if we just drew in the crosses instead of anything else, we will get sort of like these stars in contact almost, and we will produce, I don't know if you can see that very well, but perhaps on yours you can see it better. But we get to have this shield shape that has a shield shape within, and outside of it, we get to have another star. So this could be a very pleasant, how to say, it's a good idea, I think. Like, it's a good design. I think it has a lot of potential to becoming a 3D object in more ways than one. So the circuitry could be adapted to some other, design. But for right now, what we need to try is to have all the lines be valleys, and we need to have all the radial lines that we have also here be the same as these in the center. So I'm gonna take out some color pencils just to be absolutely clear as to what we're talking about. So here's what I mean. So we're gonna need, so this orange color is gonna be my mountain. So this is gonna be a mountain all the way. Well, let me just check, because I think, yeah, it's all mountains here. So it goes all the way to the end of the shield. So this one will too. So will this one. Two. So again, these are mountain lines. These are also mountains. All the crosses pretty much are going to be mountains. Now it's a given that the pattern lines are going to be valleys, so I'm not going to bother inscribing those with the valley pen, the valley color. But I will. There are some valleys which are not part of the pattern. So as soon as I'm done here, it's interesting that these Islamic patterns are so harmonic, so beautifully arranged, and they're still not part of the sort of common origami solutions. Because a lot of people are very much trying to find some new patterns, some new sort of ways to fold, and then to see that these Islamic patterns, as they're called, are so beautiful and harmonic. I mean, they fill the description pretty well. Well, I'm also seeing that this line from that crosses these crosses is also a mountain. So this line is also a mountain. This line should also be a mountain. And now we finish it off with the rest of the valleys. So the rest of the valleys go from sort of like the concave part of the star. Now, of course, I said all the pattern lines that you see inscribed with marker, you should take those for granted as, not for granted, but you should take those as valleys, automatic valleys. Okay, and there it is. So all the lines are finally inscribed with some information. And now we just need to put everything into place. So just making now all my lines that need to be mountains into mountains, all lines that need to be valleys into valleys. And a quick way of getting these into position would be to sort of, I like to do this thing where I put my forefinger on two corners and my middle finger between them. So my middle finger is on the other side, but between the shape. And then with my other hand, I just make sure that these 2 points are respected as pressure points, such as that when I begin to squeeze, I'm trying to use this valley between to work with these mountains. So once that's done, I can just sort of, I won't crease it too hard and just sort of mark it into place like this, just to have it there. And then I can do sort of the same thing, but now over here. And then we just simply take this around. And it won't be sort of a pattern that collapses too much. Like it will perhaps need some more information, some more folds in order to properly make it collapse. But it is something we can make, just the intention be clear. That is to say, we can make it look nice, right? And make it look like it's doing something, where still it remains as a very rigid kind of shape. But it does sort of provide some insight into what could be done. It's a nice starting point, is what I mean to say. How you doing, Sharmina?
I can get some bits, not all of it, but
Yeah, this is a little hard. No, this is like the
yeah, it's jumping in quite a lot. I'll have to rewatch it a little bit. I'm sure I missed a few steps. Some bits are there.
yeah. I mean, as long as you can also like set it up for yourself where you have which lines are valleys and which lines are mountains, and then just trying to get those into position. And well, I like to use this trick of like the my thumb and forefinger with the other hand underneath to sort of push these pressure points in and just activate the folds sort of. And then I let it go, and then just it achieves what I'm needing. But okay, but now, so we're going to put this to the side for now, but as it stands, we got the pattern, so that's good. And we got the motif, so that's good. We have a little circuit that we can try out for later, so that's even better. But now we're going to try and get the same pattern, but more extent. So if we wanted to just not have that much of a pattern, but want to have more, so we're going to need another hexagon. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this time we're going to divide this hexagon into thirds. We're going to repeat this process of putting all the information underneath and then spread it up. So I'm repeating the first couple steps that got us to the hexagon, with the quarter and then the vertex to that quarter line. And unfold. Here I'm unfolding because I'm retracing this fold because I want it to be as much in the corner as I can make it. Since I'm going to cut these lines, that's right. ghost these. And this time I'm going to fold this one first, as it does have this nice relationship that I can just take advantage of, where the fold I'm doing falls on the fold I have. Cut this away. Oh, by the by. Well, we're gonna cut this hexagon, then I forgot to mention something. We could see it actually in this pattern, right? Okay, I won't spoil it yet then. So we have a hexagon with 2 radii. Well, technically 4 radii, right? Since it's from the center, so it's very polar. Now I'm going to add this line, same state as the other 2. Let me know, Sharmina, when you got the hexagon. Awesome. So we now get the midpoints, the midlines, the apophthegms going on. Very important part of the pattern. So 1 side, 2 side. What time is it over there, Sharmina, by the way?
It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Nice. How's the weather?
Dark. It's not bad though.
Is it sun setting earlier than usual?
It's about an hour ago already.
Oh,
So it gets dark very quickly now.
you know, it gets dark here until like 7.
Yeah, that's not bad here. It's just such a short day.
When's the sunrise?
Maybe about 7 in the morning.
Oh wow. So it even starts kind of late.
Yeah.
That's nice though, kind of like very wintry.
Yeah. Your time to hibernate.
Exactly. So when we fold radial patterns like these, and we apply what's called the preliminary fold onto them, and we get to appreciate the independent flaps, this is what we would call a 6-fold pattern. So what's cool about calling patterns by their fold is also that you get to know what division angle are these segments in. So each of these segments is going to be pi over 6. So if the pattern is sixfold, then simply pi over 6. So this is pi over 6, pi over 6, pi over 6, pi over 6, pi over 6. All of these angles are pi over 6. Of course, if we combine them, we get to have, for instance, we take these two into consideration, and that's going to be 2 pi over 6 or pi over 3. And then we can, add more to them, and eventually we will get 12 pi over 6 because it's going to be 2 pi. That's in a full circle. So this is a sixfold division. And now what we're going to do is apply a 3. It's not a trisection. Well, technically it is a trisection, but it's not a trisection of an angle. It's a trisection of a distance. So we're going to trisect this angle right here, this apothem, into thirds. And the way we do it is we match these vertices to the apothem. So like this. You see that these two are touching the apothem and that this one is falling on itself. And you can unfold this and simply fold the edge onto the fold you just did. And you're going to see that those two will also land on the lower apothem. So 1/3, the higher third is going to fall on the top apothems, if you will, and then the other one will fall on the lower ones. And so we apply this all over. So we have one of those, 2, and 3. Now, as you can see, a lot more information is getting put on top of each other. So now our challenge will consist of finding ways in order to apply the solution which we already have to the rest of these hexagons. Now you might also notice that in this case, we actually have full hexagons beside each other, where the one before we only had half a hexagon, so it's almost as if we only had up to here. This one has another step in the pattern. And the reason why one might prefer to use thirds than fourths would be that we don't have as much space yet overlapped. So if fourth might be a little bit, cumbersome, might be a little rough, with thirds, not so much. So what we need to do is, again, be able to appreciate what we want. So what we want is, I'm going to put it on the sides where the apothems are mountains. So here I have my apothems as mountains. And so I want you to focus your attention on the smaller hexagon that we have here. So it's this one, this smaller hexagon. Now we could apply a trick like the one we just pulled, but for this one, I want to do something a little bit different, just so you also can appreciate that there's many approaches to the same problem. So we want to have this edge right there placed onto this and this. So of course we could overlap, we could do a little twist on this and just have everything be underneath this hexagon. As much as that works, the problem with it is that it will be difficult to maneuver all that layering and to do the fold into it. So what I suggest we do is fold the pattern, the motif first onto this smaller hexagon, and then twist it and then fold chronologically and try to print the fold onto the whole thing. So I'm going to isolate this edge first, like that. Now keep this distance in mind. Just raise and fold onto the apothem line. So this value placed onto there.
And fold it all the way down, score it all the way down.
All the way down, but only on this motif. So try not to do the fold that exceeds this hexagon. We only need, yeah, we only need the information that's inside of the hexagon.
Okay.
Curious enough, actually, I hadn't noticed this before, but it does hit on the corner here, like on the end. So it's like a bisection of this, which I think is interesting. I hadn't noticed that before. Yeah, so in as much as we are, again, trying to find like the crosses inside of the kite shapes there. So each edge is going to get this treatment and get 2. So we now go to the other one. And I think it's better in this kinds of patterns, especially when you want to like do something extensive, to try and focus your attention on one piece at a time. Because, you know, like there's like, I guess the cowboy approach. I don't know why I want to call it that, but it's just like, you know, guns ho, you know, just go kind of thing, where it's just all these layers overlapped and just everything at the same time. That works great for cutting, actually. So we could, again, so we could do what we're doing, trace the pattern, and then try to put everything else underneath this hexagon and just cut an offset of this pattern information. And so what that would do is just pretty much solve our problems all in one go. So that one's done. Third one. That's 3. Four. 5. Actually, that was 5. Yeah, and 6. So how are we doing, Sharmina?
I folded it. I'm just drawing the lines.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay, so now what we need to do is find a way to put this information onto the rest of the hexagons. Now, the way that I'm looking at it right now, I would prefer that we have the least amount of layers to work with. So we're going to repeat this process of folding the edge of these and just trying to print this information over to the back of this. Now, this might seem more difficult than it really is, but I like to do this in the air. And so with this layer underneath, I'm just simply going to fold the lines, all the lines of the pattern one by one.
So it's catching the one underneath it.
Exactly.
The folds that are marked in your pencil line,
Yes.
only up to how much you've marked in your pencil line.
Yes. Yeah, we don't need the full line. We just need this little bit. The trick to this, the reason why I'm sometimes hesitant to use this trick, it's the easiest one, but it's also the one that might produce the most inaccuracies, because when you do this, there's a high chance that the paper might deviate ever so slightly. And you might, when you do this, you might notice that it will try and do this to paper, like get away a little bit, because it is energy that's being displaced. So it'll go to the least resistance. So underneath with my hand, I am trying to hold this into position as much as I can. Like for instance, right now I'm using my middle finger to push the paper onto the layer that I want so that it doesn't get away from me. As much as it might produce inaccuracies, it's still a fun exercise to do. And you know, it is something that you can get better at. So it's nice to practice this ability, this trick. And so you should feel when the pattern is done, you can also then unfold, and there it's going to be.
Were we meant to have copied the hexagon lines as well? Or are they there?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. Like,
Yes,
especially if
yes.
you want to make it 3D, yes, but perhaps this is, you know, a tall order for making this 3D, because then we have to like cross these, each of these. So for right now, we're only going to worry about printing the pattern line. So just marking the crosses, if you will. But anything you want to print of this information, like on the back of it, you know, that does work, and it's not lost time, it's not a mistake. I think in the end, it will actually make it look a little bit better. So again, with my left hand, I am trying to push the paper and to be as connected as I can make it. Because when I do this, you might notice that, you know, there's a little deviance. It just very naturally just happens. But it's the fact that it's a 3D object and whatnot. So the reason why I wanted to showcase this tip was because I've been using it quite a lot in my Islamic pattern design approach as of late. So I think that it's a good thing that we practice this. And we also, I think it's a very basic way to appreciate mirroring, like putting something somewhere else. So because I've taught the light and mirror bounce idea, like this sort of a line hits another line and then you sort of just bounce that off using folds and different folding techniques. but they really are a little bit more complicated, and they vary in difficulty. And I think this is just easier to trace, like just because you can just mind where you want your information to go to, and then just overlap that and fold that again, and it'll print on the side which you just folded onto it, right? So those are many words to say a very simple thing.
So did you just do a second one now?
Yes, I did a second one, and now I'm going to go for...
So it's just repeating exactly what we've done, folding it over and then tracing those folds. I see.
Exactly, just folding it on top and tracing those folds. So that's one way of doing it, right? And it's good. The other way of doing it is to just have all the layers be where we need them to be. So we could repeat this process of getting the twist in. So this is exactly like we did before. Although it's a little bit more challenging to try and descend this, so we could anticipate what it's going to do and have mountains sort of sprout from the vertex of this center hexagon, as you see here, a mountain. And so we can turn it over, then this works as a base. This sort of, yeah, so sinks at the same time, all going, in my case, clockwise. And so now you have all the layers. Well, not all the layers. You see that these are hanging out. So we could, find a way to just have everything underneath the single hexagon. Now, the reason why I was hesitant to try this method was because of all the overlap. Because it's very thick. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 layers. So when we fold, so if I try to fold the pattern, it's going to go through 9 layers of paper. So if what we were doing was a little inaccurate, then this is going to be very inaccurate. But if we, instead of folding, cut it, then that's a different story. Cutting is a little more gracious to us because it actually can go straight down. So we could take this little single hexagon motif, do a little weave, a little offset indentation on this, just mark a parallel line at a certain distance from the pattern line which we just constructed, and cut at the negative space, or we can try and find some other ways to cut it to make it look more interesting. But that could be a nice solution. Also, we could not fold these in, and instead of 9 layers, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, still kind of costly. So this is why I'm hesitant to use that that way. Another way that we could do this would be to, instead of having them be on top, we could fold them back and have a mountain valley configuration like this. So let's see how many layers we're working with now. Well, we can have these flaps sort of in the wind and not worry about them so much. And that prints it onto these, but it's a little bit uncomfortable. Like, to my liking, to have all these sort of hanging around and just trying to fold like around them. I don't know. Or perhaps you can actually leave them folded and then actually just trace those. But again, I feel it's a little bit too thick. So this is why I try to avoid this. And also, you know, we can make a case that this is an example of how evolution or how translating some information to another place might make some discrepancies. Or, you know, alternatively, this is like the higher tier way of doing it, like just making yourself work way more, is to have these hexagons, each of these hexagons be like this one. So we would need to inscribe a 6-fold division at these centers. And then instead of folding and then copying the information, we would sort of appreciate then like this edge has to land on the apothem. And so we would repeat the same construction process as we did before. That's again the most roundabout way and the most, you know, I think that's like the way that I'm least inclined to do it. But here's another way which I think is also a little effective. This one actually I think would work very nicely. So you can fold onto the center hexagon in this way without too many overlaps. So we only have 1, 2, 3 layers. So it's not that many. And then we can print this information onto 2 hexagons at the same time. So instead of doing only 1 hexagon, by doing this process, we can fold it like this. And then when we fold it, we're actually mirroring this half twice. So this information becomes copied on here and mirrored onto here. So this spreads. So I'm going to try and do this one. This one is a little more, it's nicer because since it's thicker too, I can push it up to where I need it to be a little better than if it were a single layer. I can feel the thickness of the paper. And so it's easy for me to recognize if it is actually touching the surface or if it isn't. So all that I've gone through right now are just different ways that we can have some information be copied to some other place. And I'm sticking with this one because I feel that it's the least intrusive. And it's a nice exercise. Again, most of these folding like patterns exercises, what they really do for us is feed our imagination. More than, well, it's cool to have cutouts though. That's one of my favorite things to practically do with these patterns, just have many cutouts. But it actually can help us understand how these patterns might work. It might help us understand mirror symmetry. It might help us understand how tessellation works. Yeah. Now I have them spread on these two. And it's cool to think of like all the different mirrors that might be at play. And then when you see some other pattern that's unrelated to this particular one we're doing, you might unconsciously or consciously go into the recesses of your brain and think of this exercise and wonder, well, where's the mirror? And with that information, then perhaps you could sort of reverse engineer the patterns, or at least, you know, gain some deeper meaning or understanding, something to think about, meditate on. So what's nice about this is if we had a more extensive pattern, then it would become interesting to try and think of the least way and sort of how we could spread this out without losing too much, either losing information or doing the least amount of work. Because we also like to do some other things with our lives, don't we? So we don't want to just do this all day. But for instance, these two little triangles here, we could fold these And now we're going to do a copy of the copy. So now this is where it gets interesting. Because if we had a little letter here, and then we're going to put it here, then that little error will compound. Because most likely than not, we're going to do a little mistake. So it's fun. It's fun to do a little mistake here and there. Just again, to understand like these concepts, the compounding error concept, the mirroring concept, building upon what you were doing before concept kind of thing. I'd like to do it better underneath. And it's nice to keep track of something. I think that's a lot of the mathematical thinking. At least that's what I've gathered from teaching mathematics or whatever, like the kids. Well, the big takeaway I have a friend who has 3 kids. He is a 46-year-old Frenchman living in Mexico. He's a photographer and he has 3 kids, and they are 3 girls and they are very hyperactive. And you know, we get together to play backgammon. It's like our bonding experience we do. And because of quarantine, because of COVID, they stopped going to school. The kids did. So his wife asked me if I could teach them some math classes because I'm all about the math and the folding and whatnot. So I took upon the challenge, and I was just about to start renting a little studio space, which is where we are now. And you know, they came along. We did some exercises. I taught them multiplication. I taught them division. You know, we went through subtracting like big numbers and little numbers, and then some other kids joined in, but they were different levels, and it was just, after a while it got chaotic and I just couldn't do it anymore. So then we had to stop. But what I learned was that it needs to be fun for a math lesson to stick. So it's better if there's actually like this game underneath. So more than just understanding concepts, I would have liked if I had gone deeper into having fun instead of being all matter of fact. But that's one thing. The other thing was, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, a lot of the math problems, or like the problems that one has with math, is that, at least with kids, to follow a set of instructions, to follow and know when to apply which tactic or which technique to a certain situation. So that identifying where you are and what you can do in that situation is critical. Not critical, but it's very important in mathematics. And that's sort of how you get out of a problem. You got to know where you are and what you can do about it. So with origami, it's fun that we have a little exercise here where we're pretty much doing that. We have a problem, we have a solution. We actually have a series of solutions. We have many things that we could do. And it's our job to try and decide which route we're going to take. And then to actually employ that tactic, that decision, is the game. So for me, what I like to do is listen to music or put on some podcasts or whatever while I do this, and try to put it in the automatic. But what I've also found is that might produce distractions, and I might make a little mistake that I wouldn't have done if I was paying attention. So sometimes it's just nice to be in silence, unlike now that I'm just not ceasing talking. And, you know, just listen to the birds or listen to whatever's happening and just listen to your own thoughts. And oh yeah, so the takeaway from the Princess School of Traditional Arts workshop also was, for me, an appreciation for how much there is still to know regarding, at least for me, like I know that I'm still yet to learn many things regarding like patterns, folding, like all these things that I teach. I'm still learning of them. So in that learning, wait a minute. Maybe it's better if I don't talk, actually. So what I wanted to do was to make it seem like it was a video game. And then that sort of idea went by the wayside, but because in video games, what happens is that developers or people that make the video games have to make it sort of intrinsically understanding for the player. So if you're playing a video game, you have to be sort of like nudged in the right direction. And usually what they'll do is they'll guide you through adversity. So wherever a challenge may present itself, that's sort of the way that you're supposed to go. So what they'll usually do, like in more like, like your typical video game, I guess, would be to put enemies in the way that you're supposed to go. So wherever there's a challenge, that's the way. And as you get better, then that's sort of that's the guiding principle, right? Where you're posed with a challenge, as you gain new abilities, the enemies also get tougher. And the challenges become more challenging. And so I wanted to sort of build upon different ideas. And as we moved along the different methods of construction, we would, find that it was all like this big weave that's all connected through circles. It's all connected through like the characters of numbers, what we call the sacred ratios and all these different things. And down the road, I found that I wasn't doing that. Not that I didn't do it, but just I don't think I was that clear on it. I think there were some things that sort of stay with me in a way. And I'm not sure why that was exactly. Maybe that's just a feeling I get in retrospect, but it's something that I want to build on down the line as I work on more workshops and work on more books, and just trying to put this knowledge out there and like get it into a shareable state, an understanding state, something that could be actually digested. How you doing, Sharmina?
I did my 6 individually, but
Nice.
those outer ones haven't got the folds in there.
Yeah, you can try and just like fold that onto.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's like that's the imagination happening right there, right?
Yeah, so it's just those outer tips.
Hello, Shashi.
Hello, hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
I'm glad.
After so many days,
Huh?
you're having folding session after so many days. You're busy.
Oh yeah, no, you caught us right here. How was your folding session? You said you were going to go to. You had another one?
Yes, yes.
How'd it
It was
go?
good. It was good.
What did you guys fold?
So it wasn't a folding session exactly. I thought there would be some folding, but it was just a conversation session basically about origami or
Oh,
whatever your
nice.
experiences.
That's nice. That's nice. You probably recognize this pattern, don't you?
Yeah.
I think we've done this one. I don't know if we've done like this big of an extension on it, but sort of we're looking at different tactics or different ways that we could spread a pattern by folding, sort of a different kind of mirroring technique where we kind of, just find information, construct a single tile and just from there take it to the rest of them through this just like very basic overlap ghosting kind of approach. It's nice, it's meditative, it's easy. And once you get the hang of it, it's actually quite fun. And I think, when we're done with this one, we're still having one more design, I think. How long has this been going on? Yeah, I think maybe not. But yeah, I do want to share this like minimal triangle approach through a very simple design. I think we have time for that one. I think Sharmina and I actually are like on a similar pace here, so that's good. So we're almost done. So I'm just missing this one. And well, depending on where you see this pattern, there actually be some variations on the inner decoration. So for instance, in India, it's more common to see this kind of, they'll actually include like the hexagon into the information. And they'll also include like these, some of the radial lines that go between them. Sometimes not all of them. But yeah, that's sort of like an aesthetic decision. And I was looking through Jay Bonner's, I guess I found this beautiful article of his, this academic paper of his, the name, let's see the name. It's like something sort, wait, let me see. Where is it? Here it is, the historical significance of the geometric designs in the northeast stone chamber of the Friday Mosque at Isfahan. Let me put that on the chat. There we go. And he has a variation, something that looks like a variation of this pattern, but analyzing it, I found that it isn't this pattern, but it has similar shapes. And I think I like this one better. This one is more 12-fold. His is more like bound by the polygons in contact. So it's interesting to also think about like the deficiencies and the strengths and the weaknesses of each approach. And I think that the best way would be to actually combine as many methods of construction as you can manage. So I'm looking down the line at actually combining composite straight edge construction with the folding. So, because it's very easy to get radial divisions through folding, and sometimes it's just easier to isolate the information with the compass. So if combining them, I think that you just would save up on a lot of time, and you just have very powerful, set of tools there. Okay, so it seems that I'm done here. So just to finish it off, I'm just going to describe this with a Sharpie pen. And yeah, as a side note here, I would also like to say that to cut it and to have a pleasant cut, you would prefer to have everything be underneath this hexagon and then just cut everything at the same time. That's how I would do it. Or you could, just actually draw the whole offset and then get to, for instance, the preliminary fold. So as you can see, you have all the information also underneath this. It's not a single motif, but at least you have a not so bulky arrangement. So you could actually just draw into this thing the offset, and then I think this would be a more pleasant kind of cut. Okay, so how are we doing on time? I think I have like 2 minutes to just draw this thing in and then we'll move on. What's fun about drawing this pattern is just a bunch of crosses. And what's fun to think about then, if you want to like put some more information onto it, which is part of the interesting, because if it's a single cross and it's fourfold, you can actually put this inside of a circle. You can put this inside of a square too. So, if one were so inclined, you could actually place a compass at the center of these crosses, get this as the radius, and just write a bunch of these little circles going around the pattern. So I think that's a nice little bit of decoration. And some of the things which I haven't gotten a chance to go deep into, which I've been meaning to, is to try and encourage people to use the folds for tracing paper. So say you want to construct a 9-12 pattern. Well, to construct a 9 division is actually sort of, well, for me personally, of course, it's less challenging to fold it than it is to construct it by compass. But I know that if you were using a compass, your construction will only be an approximation. So it's not that you're going to get it wrong, it's that how wrong are you going to get it? But that it's wrong is wrong, right? Wrong is a big word, but more like, inaccurate.
Inaccurate.
Yeah. So with folding, you can actually get a pretty, accurate construction, and you don't have to like construct the whole pattern by folding. You just have to get the 9-fold division by folding. And once you have a 9-fold division by folding, you can just put that 9-fold, just inscribe with some thick marker or something, the 9-fold divisions. So, and just from there, take it. Just put that underneath and have that 9-fold division. And, from there, you just have all the points that you need. And there you go. You don't have to commit yourself to exclusively folding, but folding, I think, comes really nice into play when dividing radially, because we can actually get accurate constructions, accurate divisions, and that applies for the 7, that applies for the 9, that applies for the 11 even. I don't know of any pattern that involves 11. I don't think I've seen, no, I take that back. Once I did see one, but I saw it in Prague in what's the name of the Jewish place of worship? A synagogue. I saw it in a synagogue in Prague, an 11-fold pattern. Really weird. But they only constructed half of it though. So it was like a rising sun almost. But it was strange because since it's an odd number, then the division in its half would produce sort of a truncated part of the rosette. So I don't know, that caught my eye. I don't think I don't remember where I put those pictures in, but I did take pictures. I only uploaded one to my Instagram, but it was like some other thing that's very photographed. But it's a very famous synagogue in Prague. So there you go. So we have here the 3 divided, and we have here the 2 divided. This one I actually inscribed with some folding information in order to make it 3D, and this one not so much. This one is simply just the pattern itself spread out and then traced with thick Sharpie pen. So now we're going to move on to the last exercise in today's folding session, and it's going to be about minimal triangles. So this pattern I found in the Louvre. It's a pattern from Egypt, date unknown, but it's a very beautiful wood carving, and analyzing it, I came upon like the minimal triangle. And I'm going to teach you how to fold the minimal triangle. And then, well, see, we actually have a choice here, but I don't know if the homework, quote unquote, would be clear if I just told you about it. So maybe I do need to show you, but I'm going to show you how to fold the minimal triangle. So we begin by this seeming pi over 3 division, when it's actually going to be a pi over 6. So it's interesting because you fold this and you think, oh, this is a pi over 3 because I can see the equilateral triangle happening here. But the fold you're actually getting is a pi over 6. I like to say the radian instead of the degree, but this would be a 30 degree, and this seems to be a 60 degree because we have 30 here and 30 here that we see sort of in the overlap, right? So this 30 gets put on over here, so we could use this as a shadow for a 60 degree or pi over 3 line. But we're going to stick with this pi over 6. So this is the minimal triangle. Now, I would like you to notice that because of the fold we did in between this line, we actually have the minimal triangle right here as well. So this triangle is the same triangle as this. They are similar. They're not congruent, they are similar. They have the same properties, just different scale, right? So it just so happens that we could actually write or inscribe a line that goes from this corner to over here, and then we would have 1, 2, 3, and 4 minimal triangles in a big minimal triangle. So, okay, so my point here being, we could find a way to go inside and apply the same trick that I'm going to show you right now into each of these, or simultaneously. But, just for right now, we're going to, okay, so we have a choice here. Well, to keep it like super simple, we're only going to fold this minimal triangle. And the homework of spreading it, or the homework of finding how to apply it to the rest of this paper, or maybe perhaps you could even like use the same scale, but actually add another triangle to it to have a rectangular motif instead of a triangular motif, which is arguably more powerful. So perhaps we should just take that into account right now. Just fold a rectangular motif instead of a square, minimal triangle motif. So wherever that line hits, fold a perpendicular line right there. So it's going to be a little bit more work, but I think you guys can handle it. And it's also a nice exercise to apply it twice. The lesson, I mean. So this is a nice lesson in bouncing light and in circle packing through paper fold. So exciting. Okay, so we have it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just write in some information. I'm going to first off inscribe with a pencil the line which describes the minimal triangle of the pattern. That one right there. And so this corner is going to be a 12 fold, and so is this one going to be a 12 fold. So for right now, I'm just going to focus on this one underneath, and then I'm going to apply the same thing to this one. But first off, I'm going to use this one. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it doesn't tile like this. It's more like this over here. And so, yeah, no, this is interesting. This is funny. Okay, I'm going to cut this away too. I'm going to cut this away. Because the actual motif, like the actual way that this would work is if this is a center, and the way I'm doing it would not make this a center. So that means that, yeah, we need to cut this away, pretty much. That's what it means. So I'm gonna separate it. This is interesting. It's a nice thing to think about too. Like try and figure out why I'm doing this and why I sort of hiccuped here in the problem. Okay, so I'll tell you. I'm saying that this division right here is going to be a 12-fold division. But if my paper is arranged this way, then it makes sense. Because then this is also a 12th division. But as I had it like this, then this, the 12th, the center is way over here. It's not where this one is matching. I wonder how the recording would be because I had it in the gallery view. So I wonder if the recording actually recorded the gallery or if it recorded. Yeah, we'll see. And okay, so then this makes more sense as a tile with this 12 as a center. Okay, so I'm going to focus on this minimal triangle. So we have 12-fold division. I have where it hits my edge over here. I'm going to apply it to this one minimally, if you will. So for this one, what I could do is understand all that I'm doing here is going to be like in this guy. So try and picture this, that this triangle is this one, just for future reference. So I'm going to take this point of contact as the center of a circle, and I'm going to take this line that goes down toward the right angle as my radius. So the way that this would work with origami is we take this value and we place it onto this line. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
And so with that folded in, we now have this edge right there, this one, and we can use that if we fold it back. And see what that does is give us the edge of a dodecagon. Because we have here a right angle, we have here a line. So this is the edge of a dodecagon. And if we had sort of more information on this, we can get this irregular pentagon happening here. Or you could also imagine that we have a circle that goes from this point to this point. So this distance is the same as this distance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now this is the point of contact, and we're going to fold a perpendicular line on that point. So on that point, we lift the paper and we make sure that this edge lands on itself. So from this point goes the fold, and over here on where it lifts, this line has to fall on it. That's going to make it so it's a perpendicular line. So I'm just going to make sure, so lift it off the ground here, move it around a little bit. So because I write with a pencil, sometimes I get more guided. I guide myself more by the pencil than by the fold, and that's not right. The fold is king. There we go. And so now, with this folded up like a little boat, we have this 12-fold division still goes off to the center. Yeah? This is our center over here. And so what we're going to do next is fold this in a valley. With all this overlap, it will create like this little bulge. You can see the point there on the other side. And then we fold this back like this.
Just show that final
Yes.
one again.
We have the little boat shape.
Yeah.
And we have the 12-fold division that goes off to the center, the 12. And we fold that division. It'll click, right? It'll hit the edge there. So you see how that's the point I marked, right?
Yeah.
So with that folded in like this, then what I need to do is sort of a shadow, a ghost of this layer underneath. So I begin to take this down.
Oh.
And what I'm trying to do is have these two be the same. So then when they're falling, they're matching.
Okay.
Okay, so now we unfold and we extend this line. Nice, yeah. Okay, so this line actually is complete. So this is like a pattern line, and it is what it is. But now this one is coming in here, will not fully extend. Rather, it'll come in and it will hit this bisection which we did. So this line is coming in, hits the bisection we did, and then here it bounces back out. So it goes from that point up to the corner. And so the way we can do this a little more intuitively, we do a light mirror technique here. That's the way that I do it, and I think in this case, it's easier to apply because we don't have the full pattern. So when we have a bigger piece of paper, it's sort of harder to manage, but this is a great way to practice the mirror technique. So for the mirror technique, you need a line to have a state and the mirror to be in another state. So I have my light line here, this orange line as a valley, and this bisection where it hits as a mountain. I fold the light line first, and here I see the mirror line. You can even see that it's sort of touching there on the edge, and so I fold this, whoop, I set it up down. You can see that the corner is matching on the fold there, and then I just bring this again to match. And what's cool is that, of course, it hits on the very corner right there. So we can open this up, and this one actually doesn't extend. This one is simply what it is. But it's a great way to appreciate how the radial divisions, which describe sort of the circle, are the key sort of bounces. So that's where the line hits and bounces. So sometimes the problem with the polygons in contact is that it doesn't take into account the lines inside of the polygon. Maybe that's a little bit like here and there, not really a problem. Complaints and grievances. So last line for the pattern we need, I'm going to fold this one that I told you was a complete. And when I fold it, notice the negative space that we have here. This is exactly an equilateral triangle right there. I'm going to fold that. I'm going to fold that back again using the matching trick, the shadow trick. And you're going to actually see how it lands on the other side of the edge right there. So very convenient. Another way to look at it would be that it simply lands on the fold. But I like to do it through the negative space because it kind of like gives it this relationship with itself. And then you just write in that line. And we're almost done. All we're missing, and go ahead actually and write these in. So all we're missing is the rosette of the 12. So here's a nice little brain teaser, a little something to make you think. We want to have this line that's coming in bounce off in the same angle as it hits the edge there. So that is to say that we want this angle and this angle to be the same. So the brain teaser is, how do we do this without having the additional information? Because if we apply the same thing over here, well, it's simply going to come in where this pattern is, right? Where this line is. But since we don't, what we're going to do is we're going to put a perpendicular line right there by folding. So where this line hits on the edge, you're going to just fold this and make sure that it lands on the edge like so. You might actually notice that there's a nice little landing site on it. I think that's a landing site. If I'm not mistaken, that should be a landing site. That means that a landmark, they call it too. So with that perpendicular line folded, now you're going to shadow or ghost this line, which is the one that was coming in. Now leave this folded, this the one that we just ghosted, and just make sure that it's as much as falling on the line as you can make it. Unfold this perpendicular, leaving the 12 folded like so. And then here is my 12th line. And I'm going to fold that with this fold in. Like that, and then it like this. And so you can see how it hits on the other line. And that does it. So that's the minimal triangle solution for this.
Oh, that's so clever.
So what's also cool is that it's a lot easier to do 3D effects with these. Oh, by the way, we're missing one more line, just one more line, but this is again for the 3D effect. The pattern is complete, pretty much. But so what's cool about this is that, well, we did it pretty big, but if you wanted to, tessellate this properly, you could cut this little guy instead, apply this to here, and copy or trace with tracing paper this little bit, and then that's your whole pattern, right? Or understand that this little bit, and then there's going to be another little triangle here where this is the center, and another triangle where this is the center. And so you could apply, so I'm going to show you that one because I actually constructed that. It'll look a little bit something like this. So same triangle, just more centers. You can see that this point is this point. You can see how the 12 yeah. Okay, but make it 3D. Okay. So again, remember, all the pattern lines are going to be valleys. And now it's a matter of finding the necessary mountains and valleys to make it 3D. So it usually happens that the bisections of it are mountains when these are valleys. So mountain in between, pattern lines are valleys. And then all we're missing really is just a bisection on here in order to have this one be a valley and be properly a valley. As you can see, when I fold this line is a valley by itself, it's sort of like very overlapped. So what we want is just a nice little simple bisection there, just to make it more, make it feel more at home. And so you get a nice little 3D effect on these. And it's easier to apply this to the minimal triangle than it would be to a full pattern, but it's a great practice to then try to apply it to something more descriptive. And you can see here how the hexagon is peering in. The hexagon that is described by these triangles. You can see that this little triangle is this guy. So as it tessellates, it will actually describe a hexagon here. It has these sort of underneath shapes. So it's just a very cool, simple way of applying something that's complicated. So yeah, I'm going to leave this one for homework if you want to try that one, or you can just, cut a smaller one and just like this one, just cut a smaller one. Find where these are as well. So for instance, like there, you can fold that and you can already see sort of where the fold is going to be. Again, like most of these things are meant to feed our imagination so that we can follow logical lines. We can follow our reasoning. Get to someplace. And what's cool about these Islamic patterns, or at least most of them, are already documented. They're out there, they're monuments, they're mosques. So we can always look at them and try and figure out what they can show us. So here I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 minimal triangles, like these. You can see there, minimal triangle, minimal triangle, minimal triangle. 1, 2, 3. And here would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. I wonder why. Oh yeah, I see why. Did it like this. So it would be 1, 2. Yeah. Interesting. I did another division on that one. Very, very interesting. This one is 1, 2, and 3. But then I could divide it like this and have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you could always go deeper and deeper and find more minimal triangles and apply this effect, into something more extensive. Nice. Yeah, Shashi's got it. It's also cool, to use this one, like a combination of 2 minimal triangles for the next step. So we did 1, the next step would be 2, and then try with 3, and then try with 4, and then all of a sudden, you got this whole big thing. And it's also fun to have several in the same scale, and then you can play with putting them together. And you can even, and this is very interesting, if you made several in the same scale, you can actually Scotch tape them to the back. Like you could have these, have a similar one, have it side by side like this. put some Scotch tape on it, and you could actually appreciate it as a whole thing, like as a unit. And, nobody would be none the wiser. You wouldn't see, it would just look like this. So you could see like the line a little bit, but you could get away with pretending that it's a single piece. And you could also save on time and effort to try and like crunch the whole thing, and you can get to see how it would crunch. So that's a fun exercise to try. I recommend it. See how it goes. And yeah, I mean, this minimal triangle approach is very interesting to me now. So so look forward to folding more patterns like these, and we're gonna give more time next session to expanding upon them and actually translating them and seeing how they would work, like with the Scotch tape and all these tricks. And yeah, but today we got to see this pattern, so we got to play with mirroring and seeing different scales. We got to see a little bit on circuitry, on how to make it 3D, but we saw that, interestingly enough, the line which describes or that goes up toward it is not going to, I don't want to say describe again. It's not going to detail this very pleasant sort of like perpendicular line, like as though this star was inside of a hexagon. It's not, it's inside of a star like itself. And this shield is inside of a shield like itself. So I think that's cool that it's a pattern inside of a pattern inside of a pattern. So we could have this shield and we could put the shield inside of it, and then some other thing will happen in this negative space. And, I haven't done that one, but I think it's sort of there waiting for us, no? At least that's sort of like the thing I take away from this. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had fun.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmina. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Shashi. And well, I'm just gonna upload the session, and then down the week I'll do the timestamps, because it usually takes me so long to upload because I want to put each step into a timestamp. But you know what? I'm just gonna upload it, and then down the week I'll edit the description if you guys gonna want to check that out. But yeah, again, thank you so much for joining.
Okay, thank you then.
Have a good day. Well, good night.
Yeah. All right. Thank you then. Bye.
Bye.